YouTube, and it's preparing to live stream this webinar. YouTube, and it's preparing to live stream this webinar. There's a delay.
Mine says it's streaming live.
Yeah, you're hot, Mike. You're ready to go.
All right. Stream this webinar. There's a delay. All right.
Mine says it's streaming live.
Yeah, you're hot, Mike. You're ready to go.
All right. Stream this webinar. There's a delay.
Maggie, we might need your help. Is someone like literally on YouTube watching this? Yeah, you're hot, Mike. You're ready to go. All right. There's like a huge delay, and the sound keeps repeating back. Maggie, we might need your help. Is someone like literally on YouTube watching this? Yeah, you're hot, Mike. You're ready to go. All right. There's like a huge delay, and the sound keeps repeating back. Maggie.
Well, let me know if we want to get the meeting started. I could get us started.
Let's turn it off YouTube. Let's see how we can do that.
I hit pause on YouTube.
Oh, perfect.
And so, Rosa, we are recording. We are good to go. All of you do have an agenda, and then I will pull that up. Well, I'll just leave it off for right now, and we'll let Rosa begin.
Sure, thank you. I want to welcome everybody to our Successful Student Pillar Committee meeting. I'll go ahead and start us off to the meeting by doing a roll call. Lindsay Fullenwider. Here. Leah Rydell. Here. Scott Sullivan.
Here.
Jennifer Berman. Ryan Carpenter.
I am here and happy.
Director Snyder.
Here.
And myself, Director Martinez.
Thank you very much, Director Martinez. Director Snyder, would you like to review the mission, vision, and values, please?
Sure. Hopefully my fan isn't making too much noise. Our mission is to equip every student with the knowledge and skills necessary to be resourceful and successful. While our vision is to be by 2030, the Escada School District will be the premier school district in Oregon. And our values are to inspire, engage, and achieve.
All right, board members, you can take over.
Rosa, go ahead and continue on with the agenda there.
Perfect. Do we have any board member updates? I don't have any myself other than this is our third meeting. We're still in the learning myself, in the learning and trying to educate myself behind the data. So want to thank everybody on the meeting and staff members for helping us and educating me, one of the board members on this information. So nothing else to report. I don't know if Director Snyder has any reports, updates that wants to share.
I echo exactly what Rosa has to say, is just trying to learn and understand everything and how the data all fits in with regards to the Pillar Committee. And I don't know if now is the time to talk about some of the, or do we just want to go through the presentations and then we can just type in when we get to the certain screens? Is that, if I have questions? Okay, cool.
Next, we have Superintendent, an update.
Yeah, thank you. Director Martinez and Director Snyder, great to see you today. And thanks so much for your hard work in preparation for today's meeting. There's a lot going on in the Estacada School District right now as we transition to serve our community and listen to our community about how best to finish our school year strong. And this pillar and this pillar committee could not be more important than right now as we continue to work through some external factors that could potentially distract or disrupt from student learning, very important student learning. And so it's important that we as a team continue to keep our eyes focused on making sure that we're meeting the needs academically of all of our students, specifically those students who are underserved, and how we can continue to keep the learning going at high levels. So this is a great committee. I'm excited about the dialogue and conversation we get to have about the current learning that's going on and how we're trying to reach those goals to the strategic plan. So for those who may be watching this YouTube live or later on as we post it to the Estacada YouTube channel, I encourage you to ask questions. The Estacada School District is committed to timely responses and service to our community because the reason why we conduct these committee meetings is to be transparent, open and honest, and ultimately to get to present to the stakeholders of our community how we're doing towards their strategic plans. So I just wanted to revisit the why we're doing this meeting today and how we can communicate to our community transparently about the status of learning in our school district. So that's your superintendent's report. Thank you, Director Martinez, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ryan. Now I'll hand it over to our pillar leader, Scott.
Thank you, Director Martinez. And I've got our presentation up here.
You were watching it on YouTube. That's where that came from. It was your voice. It was your computer that had the echoes. Busted.
That's where I was told to make it on or off. See?
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe it's still recording then.
It is.
Great. All right. Again, welcome everybody. Thank you for letting Leah and Lindsay and Jen and I share with you some updated information on our student success pillar. As you see, there was the agenda. We're not going to go over the goals again, although this is kind of our first live YouTube. So I might mention that the goals of the student success pillar are twofold. One, that 85% of our students will be proficient in all essential learning standards identified by our math and ELA professional learning community teams and all secondary department content teams. And so we're really trying hard to reach that 85% goal. In addition to that, part of our goal is to increase the efficacy of our PLC survey results from a 4.01 to a 4.06. This data came from a survey provided in the fall, and something just happened. I'm sorry. There we go. The survey for the PLC was done in the fall, where we got this data after surveying all of our staff members who are involved in PLCs. Mr. Carpenter already spoke to the why, but I do want to remind us that we began this work when we did a community was involved in a Envision Estacada Schools 2030, and we created a strategic plan that was done very collaboratively with community members, staff members, students, and eventually approved and accepted by the Estacada School District School Board. Our job now is to fulfill our goals set forth in this strategic plan. And that is one of the things that we're trying to do with this pillar, is focusing on specifically on student success of our strategic plan. Our director roles, Director Snyder and Martinez kind of talked about this already. They are going to be our great communicators of what's going well and where we need opportunities for growth in our district. They are also acting as learners, and we're going to do a lot of learning today. And they're also going to be acting as teachers at some point based on the information that they gather and the things that they learn during our time together. So the first thing I want to do is do some quick updates and actions from last meeting. Our last meeting a month ago, we were talking about, actually 2 months ago, clearly identifying the year-long and short-term essential learning standards in our district dashboard. We're having a difficult time doing that because we have historical grades that are set through our student information system, PowerSchool, and we can't bring that data back and forth between semesters. So what we truly have is we have a first semester view of our data, and all the other data that we're going to look at from now on is current second semester data. And so everything from now on is going to be for the second semester only, as opposed to year long. We were also asked to provide access to the Pillar dashboard to all members of the school board, and we have completed that.
Can I pause right there?
Yes.
You did send out a link, but it's not working for me. All I get is a screenshot.
Interesting.
I can't do any of the drop downs or anything like that.
We
So
will
I hate to say it's not completed yet.
Okay, well, I'll go back and I'll read that one out there for us, and we will fix that. Rosa, is it working for you? Because I saw you on there.
Yeah, but I think I don't get all the information that I it seems like it's only a screenshot or something. I don't have any way of looking through all the information. So I'll second Director Snyder. I don't think that what we're looking at is functioning, I guess.
Okay,
I could share my screen to show you what I believe we both see, but I don't know if it'll make a difference or not.
Yeah, I'll look into that
Okay.
and get back to you guys, because I shared the file with you and the other directors. But yeah, we'll come back to that. Some long-term needs we were talked about in our very first meeting again is, how do we know what we're doing is working? And how do we know anything about our students once they leave the Estacada School District after graduation? And so I've been doing some investigation into some systems to try to track the progress over time of our graduates. I have found one commercial vendor right now that is doing that, and I've reached out for some more information and some quotes. And I've also found a couple of other districts in the area, one of those being Gresham Barlow, that does some of this information. They don't collect everything we're hoping for, but they're going to share that with me in the near future, and I will bring what I learned back to this group next month. Today, we were asked to provide more detailed definition of RTI, response to intervention, and it's green because in a few minutes it will be completed. And we have asked our communications to provide translations for our meetings, and they're trying to figure out a system to make sure that we're able to get these translations done quickly, both video and in writing. Any questions about the updates from the last meeting other than the dashboard's not working? All right.
I do, Scott, and
Yes.
maybe it's not a question, maybe it's more of a comment. On the collection of data for our graduate students, I wasn't envisioning a third-party software or a third-party service. I feel that that's going to be kind of a disconnect, right? Because we're using an outsider to get information for our students, whereas we have staff within the school district, either a counselor or someone that has a connection with our students that are tracking those students, because it's kind of awkward, you know. And I'm just thinking, for instance, my daughter, right? She, you know, it's been 3-4 years that she graduated. For her to receive a random call from a third party person, she's going to be like, non-responsive versus having someone within our school district that would carry on that kind of screening or check-in with them once in a while to get that data.
Mhm.
So that's just my perspective on that. So
Yeah, and I appreciate that. What I've looked into, they don't make personal contacts like that. And the way they do it is they have student IDs that they're probably based on a social security number or something that they get in originally, and then they're able to track that through the universities and some other areas. That's why all the data is not even available unless we make a personal phone call. And then how do we find the kids when they move 2 or 3 times in between? So let me find out what they do. And then I'll also try to find out more information about Gresham, and we'll just find out what is out there, and we'll talk more about this in the next meeting.
And I would also be interested in learning, if they're doing data grabs is what I call them from, the public universities or what have you. I'd be interested in learning what universities, colleges, and everything that they're pulling from. Are they pulling community colleges? Are they pulling just the OSUs, the U of O's? Are they getting, who are they getting the data from would be of interest to me too, because there's so many out there right now that
Right.
It's not even funny. So,
and the particular one that I'm looking at does pull across the country.
Okay, cool. And then my mouse was kind of bugging me, so I couldn't hit the unmute. The one thing that we had talked about at the last meeting too, is your Monday musings. Is that what it's called?
Uh-huh.
And I haven't gotten it because I thought you said that you were going to be sending one out shortly after the last meeting.
I think that would be my fault. I sent this last one. I apologize. I did not get your email address added to that, but I can send you the one that we sent out Monday and add you to that one. So I apologize.
That's okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Actually, we'll send you the last 2 copies, okay? And get you on our mailing list somehow better than we've got. Thank you for
because
that.
I think that'll help with the learning side of things for both of us too. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially you'll learn a lot of the great things that our team are doing right now. Thank you for that input. Speaking of our team, one of our great leaders, Miss Lindsay, is going to share and try to go a little more in detail, since we introduced the concept of response to intervention last week or last month, and you guys would like a little bit more. She has presented or provided us something, and she's going to take it over for a little while.
All right.
Lindsay, just say next, and I'll move slides.
Okay, thanks, Scott. So response to intervention is kind of our school-wide system approach to catching students and making sure they're learning and progressing in the way we want them to. It's kind of a multi-tier approach. It allows us to show whole group, small group, and then selected targeted groups of kids. The process begins with tier 1, which is our core instruction for all students. And we want to ensure that's high quality instruction, it's research-based, and our kids are getting the best core instruction, initial instruction that they can get. We also make sure that we're using to assess our students and making sure that they are meeting standards and learning skills and concept that we want, that we're using common assessments created by our PLCs to make sure that students are mastering exactly what they're supposed to be. But we also use universal screeners. For example, we at the elementary school just started a new program called 95%. And with that program, they have a universal screener assessment, and it is able to kind of catch students. Scott, you're ringing. All right, so it's able to catch students that may be below where we would want them to be. So our struggling learners are provided with interventions at increasing levels of intensity. Some of those services can be provided by the classroom teacher, him or herself, but also our paraprofessionals, our specialists, and our special educators. Or any and all of the above. But progress for these students that are not yet meeting are closely assessed, both their learning level and the rate that they're learning or the rate that they're progressing. So Scott, if you want to go to the next one, I'll kind of go over each different tier. So tier 1, like I said, is our high quality classroom instruction for the whole group of students. They're using common formative or common assessments created by PLCs or those initial screeners. So that's what every kid is going to get. If a student is struggling or does not master one of our standards or essential standards, we can then move those kids to our next level of instruction, which is called tier 2. And that's more targeted instruction for those kids. And I kind of highlighted a few things about that makes it unique and different from tier 1. And that's that interventions are provided usually in small group settings, and that it's more of an opportunity for students to practice and learn skills taught in the core itself. So it's additional practice, more guided approach where they have more one-on-one with a teacher and they can get that additional time needed. And that I want to clarify, tier 2 is in addition to tier 1. So all kids get tier 1, and then when they start to struggle or they're not yet meeting a standard, then we would give them that additional support in tier 2. Questions so far? Go ahead, Scott.
I just wanted to ask questions. Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have questions so far about tier 1 and tier 2?
Where do those take place generally?
Okay, tier 1 is in the classroom, whole group. Tier 2 can take place either in the classroom with a regular teacher or a paraprofessional within a small group. So it can be just small group time, and all of our classes do actually have time embedded in their schedule designated for tier 2. So when a teacher is working with students that are in tier 2, our other students that have mastered are working on extensions or additional support or practice. So it can be in or out of the classroom, and it can be fluid. And these kids, if they're tier 2, but yet then master, then they switch back to tier 1. So it's very fluid of where kids are at because we're constantly assessing and reevaluating what kids' needs are.
So if I heard you correctly, because this is one of my, I don't know if it's a concern or a question, but and I believe you talked about it with the extension, what about those kids that, you know, I consider a successful student also that is exceeding the measures, and, you know, kids can get, I hate to use the term bored, but they can get bored and not want to continue excelling. Is that what you're referring to as far as the extensions, and those are taken into consideration with this whole big picture? Okay, good.
Great question. And within our PLCs, one of our essential questions is, what do we do if kids don't get it? And that's part of our tier 2. We need additional support. But the other piece is, what do we do if kids have already mastered it? So our teachers are already planning and putting practices or strategies or activities in place for those students that have met the standard. Now, what can we do to show that they are exceeding the standard or even going above and beyond, or in more in-depth understanding of where they're at? I hope does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, it does.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. And then if we have students that are in tier 2 and they're still not meeting, Then we would move them to tier 3 based on the data and the assessments. So tier 3 is intensive intervention, and it's a comprehensive evaluation. Typically, tier 3 will focus on remediational skills. So if we have a kiddo that may be a grade level or 2 behind, there are certain skills that they need to master before they can do grade level essential learning standards. So this tier 3 group might work on those skills that they haven't mastered a grade level behind, 2 grade level behind, so that they can hopefully meet their current grade level standards. So in this one, typically the sizes of the groups are fairly small because it's very individualized for what those kids need. It's focused on specific skills. They're provided with intense guided practice. And if they do make an error, it's pretty direct in their error correction. For example, if a student is reading, they miss a word, we might tell them directly, no, that word is, instead of try that again. Think about that in another way, because we want to really expedite their learning and practice. So we're trying to push them forward, but it's very skill specific based on individual students and what they're lacking in or what they need to get to mastery of a grade level standard. Does that make sense? Okay.
Lindsay, I do have a follow-up question. And one of my questions is, I know that we're collecting a lot of data. Is this something that we're collecting, I'm assuming, data on?
Absolutely.
In terms of how each building class is doing as it relates to this? And I know that it's going to fluctuate, but at least we have an idea, right? As a school-wide.
Yeah, absolutely. And typically these kids in tier 2 are assessed individually on their remedial skills, and that's inputted into a spreadsheet. For example, with our 95% reading intervention, we have all the students in tier 2 and tier 3 on a spreadsheet. Data is put in immediately after progress is taken within a couple of weeks. And we're constantly looking at that data, reassessing, see what group, what skill they need. Because our hope is we want to move them as quickly as possible to where they need to be. And we don't have time to teach them something they may already know. So we're assessing constantly. If that makes sense. Does that answer your question, Director Martinez?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Lindsay, when you talk about assessing, sometimes we think those are long, drawn out tests or quizzes or something. Can you tell us how much time these assessments take and how much time we spend assessing versus learning and teaching?
Right. Well, typically with our tier 2 and tier 3, the assessments are much smaller because we know exactly what skill or what concept they need to master. So sometimes it's even an observation, oh, this kid is blending now. He's able to do it successfully 9 out of 10 times. He can move on to something else. So our progress assessments or our reteach assessments, they are much shorter than a longer unit assessment or a screener. They're pretty fast and furious.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, thank you very much, Lindsay, for sharing that with us. And if anyone does have more questions, please let us know. And Lindsay is our expert, but so are our principals are pretty well versed in this. And in addition to this, we have a lot of our elementary and middle school teachers who have had some extensive training in RTI models through our professional learning communities.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Lindsay.
Yep.
So want to look at some wins that we've had recently, and that we've got down here. We've identified, we're continuing to identify needs. Why I asked Lindsay about that question about assessment and time is because we do talk a lot about collecting evidence, collecting assessment data, and sometimes people think, and you hear it in the news a lot, you hear it from certain organizations that, oh, we're spending all our time assessing. Well, we don't really spend that much time because it's kind of like being maybe a basketball coach at the NC2A Final Four. You're making adjustments as you're playing, and you're assessing as you're watching people perform. And that's what our teachers are doing as well. They're thinking on their feet, they're observing little things and big things, and they are making quick adjustments. And that's part of the data that they are collecting. However, we are still struggling with identifying evidence and data that is showing the outcomes that we're trying to accomplish. We have our pillar dashboard. It tells us, but it's still big picture, high elevation information. And so we're spending a lot of time as a group of leaders trying to really figure out what kind of evidence that we can look at in short term to monitor what we're doing, just like we do with our students. And so we are working on that, and at the classroom level and also at the building level. I'd like to shout out to Lindsay and Mr. Carpenter. They suggested that we do some click baiting, which I never heard of before that, and try to increase the number of people viewing our Monday musings. And we've almost doubled in some cases our viewing, and we're getting anywhere from 135 to 165 views of our last two publications. During our PLC rollout a while ago, one of the things that was suggested was bringing in an expert like Mr. Rick Wormelli to continue our learning and our progression in standards-based learning and reporting. And it's great to announce that we have contracted with Mr. Wormelli, and next Friday, he's going to have the first of 4 3-hour workshops with our staff. And he's an internationally known consultant and expert in assessment and standards-based learning and how best to identify students' knowledge. And if you would like to watch any of those, I can get you a link, I believe, and share those with you. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, I was really inspired this week. Many of you haven't had the opportunity yet to hear Ms. Berman share the first draft of our standards of excellence. But in that, you will see a continued discussion. You'll see themes of collaboration and teamwork. And that's what our PLCs are all about, is collaboration, teamwork, and using evidence to identify our strengths and weaknesses. And so I just wanted to point out, it's really not a success for the student success pillar, but a success or a win for our district is that you will see these common threads through every walk of life or every area that we talk about and work at in the Estacada School District, including technology and communications. You hear these same threads and these same themes. Still facing some barriers.
Before you go, I'm sorry, before you go on to the barriers, back
Sure.
at your wins, the consultant, is he aware and or has the understanding of the data that you're also trying to collect and being able to put 2 and 2 together with that regards? Is there a similar, and I'm trying to make it as much sense as I can, the understanding that, you know, we're trying to collect the data, but at the same time, whatever he's going to be providing the education on, is that going to be consistent with the data that we're collecting too? Is that helpful too? Okay. Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to say it.
No, that's good. Ryan and I or Superintendent Carpenter and I were able to have probably about a 45-minute to an hour conversation with Mr. Warmelli, giving him background of who we are and where our journey has gone and where we're hoping to go. And he's customizing these presentations for our teachers and for where we are at. And then after these 4 3-hour workshops, we're also going to have 2 3-hour workshops in this early summer with just our leaders to talk more about how to lead this work as well. But
Excellent,
yeah,
thank you.
he knows where we're at, and I think we were able to give him a fairly clear picture of the Estacada School District in our time with him.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, some barriers. We are seeing growth in our students meeting proficiency in our essential learning standards, but we still have room to improve. I can't believe we have about 11 weeks left after this week, and at the current rate, we're having students come in 2 days a week in those 11 weeks. So some kids, unless we are able to move to a different model, we'll only be able to see them about 11 or 20 to 22 more times this year to help them and help assist them to get to those essential learning standards. We're also still seeing difficulty in identifying some measures by our leaders for their specific action plans. And so we're trying to really push that, and we're asking for some specific evidence weekly when we meet for our essential learning standards huddle. And so we're really pushing this, trying to identify this. And again, I think Rick Warmelli might be able to assist us as well, but it is a focus, and we're maintaining it as a focus in our buildings. And building leaders struggle focusing on evidence that monitors our progress in meeting our goals. What I mean by that is that they have a lot on their plate, and they're having to focus on a lot of things, and it's my job to help redefine or refine them and keep learning at the forefront, and also help remind them and bring them back. Even though everything else is going on, we still need to focus on our action plans that we established to lead to student success. And it's a continuous learning piece, and we're going to continue to learn and improve in that area. Questions, thoughts? Jen, you want to share anything, being a building leader?
I'm good. You've got it covered.
Okay, thank you. Have a little data for us. As I mentioned earlier, our data comparing last semester to this semester is night and day. So I'm just going to show you second semester data, and you will see that we are finding some growth in both math and ELA. So this represents our second semester district average of students meeting proficiency. And you'll see in math that it went from here about 60% to about 70% over those last two periods. And then ELA, although starting lower, we also are seeing growth in that as well. So there is some good growth going on. Also, I shared with you last month how our leaders are doing in their leader action plans, and how are they doing in terms of meeting or addressing their action plans. And at that time, we had a few people that were still really not even starting some of their math or English language arts, and a larger percentage, their PLC rollout information and creating their action plans. This month, that has changed. We have no reds in our math and ELA, and we have reduced by about 2/3 our PLC efficacy work. So what these two graphs are really saying is that our leaders are focusing on the work that we want them to focus on. And soon we hope to see more green and less yellow and get rid of this one little red over here. Last thing here I wanted to share real quick was a rounding summary. I round weekly with about 7 or 8, maybe more than that, folks, and then every 2 weeks with another group of folks. And most of these are our principals, Leah, Lindsay, our coaches for Canvas, and my technology person, Christy Cheshire. And I talked to them about their action plans and how we are doing and how they're feeling about our movement towards essential learning standards and improving our belief in PLCs and what they are doing in their action plans. And here is what we call a rounding summary, where I'm going to share what are 3 big themes that I gained from my past couple of weeks of rounding. Then I'm going to talk about a couple of opportunities that I learned from my rounding, and then identify an action step that I'm going to take based on my rounding. So first of all, what are 3 major themes? And you might hear some similarities here. Many learners or leaders are maintaining essential learning standards and professional learning communities at the forefront of their work. However, we do have a few that are not. Individuals are collecting more data and evidence related to their individual leader action plans. Again, we're having more data collection. We're talking more about it. And we have individuals who are not directly connected to schools are the ones who are struggling the most to keep standards and PLCs in their sites. And what I mean by that is our building principals, this is not an issue at all, but for people involved in technology or in the business office or in HR or in special services, this is not at their forefront on a daily basis. So it's harder for them to stay focused on the task at hand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess, can you give an example of what one of those PLCs is, just to get a good understanding?
It wouldn't be a PLC. I meet with the director of special services. I meet with human resources. I meet with our superintendent. I meet with our business manager. I meet with our communications. I meet with our principals, and they meet with people underneath them. And I meet with Lindsay and Leah and Lexi and Christy. And those are all regular. Those who aren't in a building, which probably are more central office located people, they're having a harder time keeping the student learning and the PLCs at the forefront of the work that they do.
Because it's not a day-to-day thing.
Yeah, because it's not part of their day-to-day. And sometimes, and I'll be honest, when they work with me, they have to keep me focused on their plans and my plans to assist them, because it's not part of our daily day-to-day. It's not always in front of us. And my job is to try to get all of us, myself included, seeing these things in front of us at all times, because we're saying they're important. So what are some opportunities I see? As I round with individuals, I need to have a regular focus on their leader action plans and ask direct questions regarding them, and not just ask them, how's it going? more broader or general questions or ask them about student learning in general, I need to focus and get in and see what they wrote and typed in and what goals they set. And I need to ask probing questions that are directly towards the goals that they set. And I have begun doing that this week, and it's making a big difference, I think, in my knowledge of what's going on, I think, and also in their awareness of what they need to continue to do. In addition, I'm hoping that through this rounding, I will be able to more quickly identify people who are struggling so that I can collaborate with them to get them back on track. And the last thing I have on there is what action step is going to be taken based on my rounding. And that is that I'm going to try to train our team to round with their LAP, their leader action plans, in the forefront of the questioning. And Ryan is helping to reinforce that. And we're going to keep our focus on the prize, which is the things that we wrote that we would do in our leader action plans. So I'm going to pause there, first of all, see if anybody has any questions or comments.
Scott, I don't have any questions other than a request, and that would be because I know that we're recording and we want to be transparent and want to make sure that our parents who are viewing this information really understand what we're reading. Mm-hmm. Just wanted to make sure that any abbreviation that we have, that somewhere in the presentation, it has what it means.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Any other thoughts or questions or suggestions? How about suggestions of what you would like to see next month or learn next month?
Scott, I have one question. How is Estacada School District doing when it comes to learning so far this year?
That's a good question, Mr. Carpenter. Most currently, 2 days ago, we were at this level. I could break that down by school. I did not do that for this purpose because we have 4 different schools. But we are growing and continuing to monitor going forward. That's an overgeneralization.
Yeah, let's get more specific.
How specific would you like to get?
And maybe we don't have to do it in this meeting, but in the future, like I love what I'm seeing in terms of the strategies and things that are there. But if you could just maybe either at the beginning or at the end of that, just like, so how are we doing? Summarize that. And I do see the thing there, and I obviously I'm aware of it too, but it would be nice just to give our community and this committee just a very quick snapshot of not generalization, but just specifics of how we're doing towards this plan. What's our 30-day pulse check of our progress? That's all.
Thank you. Is there any other suggestions that or things you'd like to learn or have done this month, the next 30 days, and presented to the community in 30 days?
I do have a request, and I don't know, and maybe this is just a request from me, because I know that you have intended to share some of the dashboard information, the data. And I would like to, as one of the board members, would like to learn what's behind the data. So a little learning educational session one-on-one with you, Scott, or Leah, or whoever manages the dashboard, to kind of really understand what we're looking at the dashboard, because it could be very overwhelming. So I just want to know that I understand what I'm reading, right? Behind the scenes, kind of to get a better perspective.
I would also like the same, yeah, because there's a lot there. And obviously, teachers and administrators spend a significant amount of time in there so that we can see it at, in the end. But I totally agree. I'm a hands-on person, so I'd like to see, how it comes to fruition, if that makes sense.
I love the idea. And do you think that we should do that at our next meeting so others can see that as well? Or would you like to do smaller group?
I would prefer, for me, I would want to do a one-on-one, I think, a smaller group, just because there might be a lot of questions. Who knows, right? So, and then we could then address, maybe share what we learned, and maybe we might modify the data and present it in a different way once we know what it's telling us essentially and what might be missing. And that's what superintendent alluded to, a little bit more of data of how we're doing per building and all that stuff. So
All right, we can take care of that. You will hear from us, I promise. Anything else? Nothing?
We're still
Nothing
learning.
we're still learning, and it's just once again really thank all of our teachers, principals that are behind the scenes doing all the hard work, and it's a lot of information for sure. So I really want to applaud them for all they do, and just be patient with us, with me, because we're learning. So yeah, that's all I have.
Same here.
Well, thank you. That's our president. Now continue with the agenda.
Perfect. Well, I'm not exactly sure who is in charge of any public comments, or if someone's monitoring that. Do we have any at this moment?
We do not, but at the moment we have 3 YouTube viewers. So welcome to our committee and thank you for watching.
And nobody on chat for Zoom.
Okay, well, that concludes our meeting for today. For Call of the Order, we'll stop the recording and we'll see you guys next month.
Thank you very much for participating.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Lindsay,
Thank you.
Lindsay, Leah, Jennifer.